What is up, guys? In this video we're going to be looking at how you can set up a simple little shop here in Roblox. When you walk up to it, you can click, the UI will pop up, you can close that UI. You can also click buy, which will then reduce your current amount of currency. So in this tutorial we're going to be looking at how to create and set up that currency, and also how to get that UI, how to create that UI, and also how to get that UI to pop up. This is a beginner's guide, and my purpose is not for you to have to come back to the video and relearn and watch. So I'm not going to be just throwing codes at you and expect you to know what they are. We're going to take our time, and I want to make sure that you understand what you're doing. That way you'll be able to do simple things that are similar to this without any help. So before we get started, don't forget about Maveldor. This game, we've been working on this game for quite some time, so we're excited to tell you that it is coming out very soon on Steam. So make sure that you add this to your wish list. Follow us so you'll be notified as soon as it drops. Maveldor is a multiplayer co-op game. It's going to be amazing. That's right. Little gameplay there for you. I'll turn it down a little bit. Little gameplay there for you. It is coming out very soon, guys. So again, I just want to plug you guys in on that. Follow it, add it to your wish list. It's going to be amazing. Oh my gosh. My jokes are too cheesy, even for a game filled with mice. I'm going to be making a video very soon explaining more about Maveldor, so keep an eye and ear out for that. Here we are in Visual Studio. No, I don't know where I am apparently. Here we are in Roblox Studio, and I'm gonna hit play to show you what I have so far. Absolutely nothing has really been set up ahead of time, so you'll be able to follow step by step. You can see just my character name showing up here, nothing, and I can go over here and there's nothing to click to do anything. So let's get with the coding. We're gonna go ahead and start adding the player currency, so we'll be able to see the player currency that shows up right here. Best place for that, guys, is to hop into the player starter folder. So each folder is very unique for the things that they do. And also here's my shop, by the way. Just a little shop that I found on the market here. It doesn't come with any scripts on it. Thanks to the awesome creators of that shop. But yeah, like I was saying, we're gonna hop into the starter player, and then go into that, and then we're gonna go into the starter player scripts. We're gonna click the plus button, and we're gonna add a local script. I like to name my script, so first thing I do is click on the name of the script, and I scroll down here where we have the properties, and I go to name my script right here in the name. If you don't see properties, guys, go to the view up at the top and just make sure it's turned on right here. You see everything that has gray, like highlighted gray, those are all the stuff that's turned on, including my output, so I can see the error messages down here. I know with the new updates and videos in Roblox Studio, things are different. So if you go under player here and see your player, there is no leader stat, which is something that's important, and I'll show you why in just a minute. Anyways, here's that local script. Now I was saying that I would like to actually change the name. I'm gonna call this one startup startup coins. There we go. Nope, can't spell. Startup coins. Oh, there's a little thing there. Startup coins. And you see the name of the script is called startup coins, and it also has a print hello world that prints hello world just by default. So if we run the code right here, we actually see the hello world being printed out here because I have the output being displayed. All right, let's actually put some code into this. First thing we're gonna need is a reference to our player. To get that reference is simple. Go ahead and type local, because this is how you create variables, and then we're gonna call this guy player. Local player, we're gonna say equal game is your entire game right here, and normally you'd go into workspace, but the player is not inside of workplace, just inside the game. So I gotta go game, and then I'll say players right? Which gives you this category. That's what we're in. Players, as you can see, if you want to go into, let's say, starter GUI, if you type starter GUI, that will also show up. Okay, so we're literally just going in to find the player, into the players, and when the game is not playing, when the game is playing, you'll see a lot more players in this list when it's actually like published and on the market. So this code, you want to specify that you want this local player, and that's where the other dot comes in, where you say local player, which means you, the person on this computer. And this code will give us now ourselves the local player. So now we have a variable called player, which is representing us, the local player, and that's how we get the player. Now let's create a variable that will store the amount of currency that we want in our game. We're going to say local, and this can be our starting currency. So I'm going to call it that, starting currency. And I'll set this to, let's say, 500. There. So we've created two variables, one that's the player, one that is the starting currency. All we got to do now is create a folder in the player right here. He has a backpack and a player script. When the game is playing, there's more stuff that shows up. But in the most recent Roblox updates, there was something called the leaderboard stat that I told you I'll tell you about. That's not showing up anymore. You have to make that yourself. But I'm going to show you why it's important. Okay, let's create a folder. All we got to do first is create the variable name. So this is local. And I'll say that this is our data folder. So I'm going to call it data folder and set it to player, which represents our player. Do the double dot. And then you say find first child. Now what I'm doing here is I'm checking to see if it already exists. And if it doesn't, then we create it. So in quotations here, I'm going to check for something called, let's say, data folder. Checking to see if data folder exists. Okay. So finding it. Okay. This variable will find that first child. You can see here, there is no folder in there that's called data folder. So the following code now is if, and we're going to say not data folder, right? So if it's not, then we'll do the following code. So if that data folder doesn't exist, which we're trying to find, and if it doesn't exist, then we'll do what we're going to do here, which is simple. Data folder equal, and this is how you create a new folder. You simply type the word instance dot new, and then the name of the folder, the type will be folder. Then go down one more line and we say data folder one more time. This is where we set the name of the folder. So we're going to say dot name equal, and then here we're going to say data folder. I want to make sure that the name of it is the same as this because I'm going to be checking to see if that folder already exists. So the name should be same. And then finally, why do we have a reference to the player? Because we want to parent this to the player. So we're going to say parent. All right, so I noticed my face has been in the way the entire time. I'm just going to remove that out the way. So like I was saying, you click on this and name is right here. You can name it if you weren't able to see that earlier. I am so sorry. My face has been in the way this entire time. Anyways, data folder dot, and then we're going to say parent, and then we say equals player. All right, so we're parented to the player. That folder should show up here. Let's see if this works just real quick when you hit play. We're going to go into this folder now that the game started, into the name, and boom, we see the word data folder. So it works perfectly. Let's go put our coins, our currency into that folder. So next variable here, or next function, is our currency. So we're going to say currency. Oops, can't spell. Currency value. Why not? Currency value equal, and then we say instance dot new. Remember, that's creates. What is it going to be? The type. You're going to say int value, just like that. So you create an int value. Check this out, guys. If we go over here and I go to player, I want to create. You can see that I have folder. That was one of the types mentioned here. And there is int value. So I'm creating this using code rather than manually doing it myself. Next, the currency dot name. What am I going to call it? I'm going to call it coins. It's like so. And then the currency value itself, so currency dot value, that's the name. It's not actually the value. Probably should just name it currency, so not currency dot value dot value. So the actual value of the currency is going to be this here, my starting currency, which represents 500. And then finally, currency dot parent will be this guy. So if you understand what's going on here, reference to the player, create a folder in the player, then create a currency in that folder that's in the player. If that makes sense, let me zoom in. There we go. Make sure we can see that a little bit better. There we go. That's better. We hit play, and now when we go to player, we see that folder, and inside that folder is coins, and that coins have 500. Now it's not showing up here, and that's so simple. I wonder if this will work if I simply just change the name of this folder to leader stats and press enter. Boom. Look at that. And it shows up. Why? Is because the word leader stat inside the player is something that's significant to this area right here, which will show your stats. So as you can guess, the way that we're going to fix this is instead of checking to see if there's a data folder that exists, we're going to check to see if there's a leader stats that exists. And if it doesn't, then when we create the folder, we're going to name it leader stats. And that's it. Let's hit play. And we now have in-game currency for ourselves. There it is, 500. All right. Let's speed things up a little bit with the UI. I went ahead and I did not went ahead and make a UI. Let's do that right now. So in the starter GUI, that's where you want to go to create your UI. You're gonna want to create first a screen UI. Now this screen UI is significant to each UI you're going to create. If you want to create another UI, you create another screen UI, and so on and so on. In the screen UI, I'm going to go ahead and create a frame, and now you can see it. So screen UI is kind of like, oh, there's a UI, and the frame is the actual like kind of visual representation. So I'm not going to make it too big. I'll do something about this size. And then as for cosmetics, you can come down here and put in whatever colors and stuff you want. So there you go. I'll do that. That's the color 3, background color 3. In that UI now, I'm going to go ahead and create a text button. So you can see that's a child object. So there's child, right? We go down into a list here. And I'm just going to make it a little bit smaller. There we go. And there we go. Now, if you double click here, you can get to the text quick. The text is also somewhere in here. I just don't want to look. And I'm going to say bye. Now, the name of the button is text button. And we want to change that. You see here it says name. You want to change that. And I'm going to call this buy button. This part is important, the name of it, because the script needs to be able to target that as well. Stay with me, guys. We're almost there. And here's our button. All right. Looking pretty good. I will duplicate it. Right click, duplicate. Now I have 2. And I'll move one over. And this one here, I'll just call it closed right there. Find it here, find the name, and change the name to closed. Close the button. Keep in mind these names are important, so make sure you're spelling them correctly for your own good. For your own good, which means it's going to depend on how you code it. Now check this out, guys. Your button, your frame itself has a active, so you can boop off or on, or activate it basically. in the screen GUI, there's one called enable. This one, if you turn this one off and on, it disappeared and come back. I do want to point something else out. When we hit play, your UI that you made, you can see that I had mine disabled by default. So if I try to enable it now, it doesn't show up, which is odd. But if you go into your player account here, there's something called player GUI, and guess what? It shows up here as well. And this, if I turn this on, that one shows up. It's kind of odd, and I'm going to explain it to you in just a second. So I'm going to rename the screen GUI. Right here it says name, and I'm going to say shop pop. Let's do shop GUI. Okay, shop GUI. Capital G, capital S. Now again, hit play. Do want to point this out. It shows up in the player GUI, shop pop. Shop GUI. There you go. Shop GUI here that we made, but it gets added to the player's the player specific GUI. Why is that? Is because if you were to enable this, if this was actually able to pop up and enable itself like so, then it would be for all your players, because this is in your game. This is everything inside your game. But if you want something to pop up just for your play when your player go over there, then it has to be inside the player GUI. So with the new updates, these things are added to the player GUI automatically. Usually you have to actually do that back in the day with your code, add them into here back in the day with your code. So what we need to do now is just target it in here and have it boop enabled and then boop disabled when we don't need it on the screen. So for right now, I will have it enabled by default. When we run the game, it's just there by default, so we can start making sure these buttons work. When we press close it, and when we press buy, we want to reduce this amount here. Let's get into reducing the amount, and I'll show you how that works. Super easy, super simple. Let's get it. All right. So within this amount, I'm actually just going to make a script within the starter GUI. So I'm not even going into, the GUI itself, just within the starter folder. I'll click create, and let me type, let's see, local script, boop. And again, I like to name my code. So I'll call this shop script. It's like so, shop script. And it spits out the hello world. We're gonna remove that, and let's make a reference to the GUI itself. So we want to make a reference to the shop, but the one that is particularly within the folder that the player, right? The player folder that's going to be showing up. So we want to make a reference to that particularly. So not like, oh, check the parent and check the shop. We got to go into that folder for the parent. So the reference to the GUI, we're going to say local, and then this will be, let's just call it GUI equal. And again, we're going to go back into game. We're going to go into that players like we did before. Go into the local player like we did before. And guess what it's called? Player GUI. That folder that showed up there is called player GUI. Then we want to make sure we wait to make sure it exists. So you're going to do a double colon there, and then just type the word wait for child, and the name of it is shop GUI. It knows. All right, so we're going to basically wait for that shop GUI to show up in here. So you can see it's not there. A lot of stuff is not there until the game has started playing. So we're waiting for that to start to play, wait for it to show up, then we get a reference to it. Now we have a reference to that GUI while it's over there. Now we're going to make some references to the buttons. First, let's create the connection to the buttons. So local, let's say buy B is the buy button. We'll just say equal GUI, right? Dot, inside this GUI, we go from GUI to the shop to frame and then to the button. So GUI dot frame dot buy button. Makes sense. Let's go ahead and connect the close button as well. We'll call this close B equal GUI dot, and again frame, then in this case closed button. Okay, that's why these names are important. Now that we have basically connect the button function or variables to our buttons here, or to our variables there, let's go ahead and create the two functions that will fire off when the button is clicked, like the buy purchase, the purchase part of the functionality here. Now this part isn't too bad or too hard to do. We want to do this right here in between. This part isn't too bad to do. We'll create a function. So we say local and you say function, but I was thinking I don't want to create two functions for the two different clicks. I'll just create one. So we do on button click. That's just what I want to name it. Doesn't have to be exactly that. And then in here we're going to pass in information to say, hey, which button did we press? I'll just pass in information that I'm going to call button. And then of course the end command to end the function there. So a way we're going to detect which button was pressed, and also make a connection to the what's it called, on the player, the amount of money they have. We have to do that also right here. So local player, since we haven't made it, you saw how we did it here. Basically same thing. Local player equal literally just this piece of code right here. So now we have a reference to the local player. Now to check which button was pressed. Easy to do. If button, whatever we passed in, name, right, is equal to double equal sign here, guys, don't forget it, by button. If this is the name, then what do we need to do here? We get the money from the player and increase it. So we're creating a variable again. I'll say local, and I'll just call this lowercase c coin, or coins equal. I got the reference to the player already. So we say player. Remember where in the player that money is stored? Leader stats. And what was the name of the value? Coins. Remember, right here in that leader stats folder. Okay, so now we have a reference to the coins. So if we did press that buy button, we locate the coins, then we just say coins dot value equal, we're going to grab the coins value again, equals itself minus 50. You know what, let's put in a little check to make sure that we can buy it. So above this I'm going to say if if coins dot value is more than or equal to 50, then I'll take this, put it here. Okay, so if we have 50 or more, then we can go ahead and reduce it by 50. Otherwise, we'll make an else. It's about right here. We'll make an else and say print not enough to purchase that value. All right, so that's if the button is equal to that. That if corresponds with this end. And what I'm going to do is before this end, I'm going to add in right here something called elif like so. Then we're going to do something here. So the L if we don't need, let's go L if we're going to say button dot name is equal to closed button. So see how that works? The else is simply else do the other thing, but now there's an else if that means there has not a condition to go on with the else to see if it's a different button information we've sent. Did we send the close? And else if we did send the close, then what we're going to do is just close the GUI simply by saying GUI dot enable equals false. Oops, that's a C# thing, putting the semicolon there. So this will close the GUI. If we press the close, this should purchase. This whole part right here is all about purchasing. This is about closing. Hopefully this makes sense to you. Leave a comment if there's something that was a bit confusing. Now, we have not strung up these references that refers to the button. We have not strung them up to say, oh, when we click buy B, let's go ahead and send that information to the on button clicked. We have not done that yet. So let's do that right now. Now we have references to both buttons below. Let's set up the sending of the button click. So we'll start with buy B. And all you gotta say is dot, and we say mouse button 1 click. We've clicked that item. And then we just simply connect a function to be fired off. Since our function has a parameter, I have to write function, open and close parenthesis, and then I like to just tab down. You don't have to do this part, but I like to do this. Enter down, put end here. So function, open and close parenthesis. This is the closing parenthesis here for this connection. And then between here, I'm going to tell it to run the on button click function. And then in here, send the buy B, which refers to this. That's what it's called. So we'll go in here as buy B. When you check the name, it's going to see this. This is the name. Okay, so this same thing we're going to do for the other button. So close B, and again, dot mouse click 1, connect, function, open close parenthesis, enter down, and we're going to send, instead of buy B, this time we're going to send close B. And that should strung up the buttons to be able to click. I don't know why I'm getting stuffy right now. Having issues breathing through my nose. All right, let's see if we have any errors. No errors so far. I see the boat UI. Does it close when I click close? Yes, awesome. I'm gonna run it one more time because I should have tested buy first. All right, we got 500. If I press, am I gonna reduce by 50? No, we didn't. Says here, attempt with nil value, if, okay, coins. So if this leaderboard.coins, you see, it's called coins, guys. And I write coin here, so my variable is coins. Gotta add the S. Oops, stop your game from playing first. Add the S there, and the S there. All right, let's hit it one more time. And if I press buy, we're reduced by 50. Boom, 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 boom. And once I hit 0, let's watch the log below here. When I press buy again, boom, not enough coins to make the purchase. Perfect. Everything works perfectly. Now we don't want this UI to be there. We want this UI to disappear and not not be there. Show up later when we go to the shop. So check this out. I'm going to simply boop, enable is false on this GUI. Now it duplicates itself and adds it to the player folder. Remember that. So when it's over here, if we enable it, it will pop up. And if we press buy, it will work. Because we were smart and we made sure to target the GUI that is in the player. So it was the code is already set up to work from the GUI within the player system. If you had wrote this differently and you're targeting the one that's here in the starter GUI, you would see that your buy button would not work, guys. So have faith in me. I am leading you to victory. Now for the shop. For the shop, I did a on click. You can do something like an on touch. I'm sure you guys can figure out how that works. I might set that up for you as well if we have time at the end of this video. I don't want to make it too long. But here's the shop. And what we could do with the shop is add to it a little something. So these are all the components, a little child off the shop. You could go to the shop, click add, and choose to add a click detector to make this quick. And then in the click detector, when it pops up, you can go here to the max distance and just reduce that to like 8. That's like how far the player has to be before he's able to click the shop for it to work. Okay, I'm gonna try to do this all using I'm gonna show you how to do this all using code. I'm actually gonna remove the click detector. We're just gonna do it using code. So the same shop script, let's hop into it. And now we're gonna target the shop. Reference to the shop. So local function, and I'm gonna call it shop. And where's the shop located? Pause the video and try to target it yourself if you can. Just take a good look, pause the video here, and try to target that shop yourself. All right. So if you tried, hopefully you did, and weren't just lazy like me. Obviously, it's in game, the entire game. And then where is it in the game? It's in workspace. You can type workspace. In actuality, you can actually directly type workspace without having to say game first, since you're going directly into workspace. That sometimes works. I like to be fully like code best practice, so that's a lie. Anyways, workspace, and then we're gonna wait for child like we did with the GUI. We want to make sure it exists, even though it starts in the scene. We just want to make sure it loads in before we try to target it, and that's best practice. And then it's called shop with a uppercase S right there in workspace shop. Okay, so I just wait for child. It's a child object of workspace and shop. Just keep in mind this little dot is kind of like saying, hey, from this folder to this folder to this folder. And this dot is kind of like these double dots here. It's kind of like saying also to this other spot, but I want to do something special like wait. It's a child object of this, but I do want to wait. All right, so now we've targeted the shop. Lowercase shop is the variable. We can then go ahead and proceed with add in the button click functionality. And I'll show you how to do that right now. Let's actually go down to the bottom here and do it down here. So all the other stuff is still there. We don't have to touch any of that. Okay, so we say local, and then I'll call it click detector. I'll just leave it as that, click dict equal, and then we say shop. That's the variable that represents our shop. And all we have to do is do a find first child. We're gonna do find first child of class, this one. And then I'm gonna write in here, click detector. We're checking to see if there's a click detector on this in this shop child objects. It's similar to just where is it? It's similar to here, find first child, but I'm just doing it based on a certain class, so the click detector class. Once I have that variable, same thing as before, check if it is not there. So if not, click detector, then it's not there, so we must add it. As you can guess, easy peasy. So click detector, click dict equal instance dot new, just like before, and then the click detector. That's how we add it. We can also give it the proper name. So like before, name equal and click detector. I mean, why not? No need to do anything fancy with it. And then finally, parent, capital P equal, as you can guess, shop. Right into the shop. That ends that code. Now that there's a click detector, let's handle the function of making it do what it's supposed to do. Another thing we can do in here is, since the code is going to add it in, you should be able to do the max activation distance equal 8. Because when it adds it in there, I'm actually going to uncomment this first so we can check. It's going to just go with the default, and I think default is like 30 something. So local function now. This function will fire off when we click the shop. So we're going to say, I'm going to call it click shop. And what this shop will do is simply GUI dot enabled, remember, equals true. Why not? Because this is how we closed it. So it's to open it, it's just the opposite, true. So we have the click detector. We have the function to fire off when we click it. The click detector needs to fire this function off when we click the thing. So this is where you say click dick, and then you say mouse click. That's the functionality that click detector allows us to do. And then you connect the function you want to connect to it, which is click shop. Excuse me. I think I need some water. I'm talking too much. All right. After a long drawn out tutorial, I think that did it. Let's go ahead and check, and I'll show you if this works. So when we click play, the script should add a click detector to the shop. Boom, there it is by the click. And you see the default max distance is 32. So now if I walk over here, you can see the mouse pops up for me to click it. And I can click it, boom, and this pops up. And if I buy, perfect, and I can close it. I can click it again. So you can see this is a very long distance, and I cannot change. I can change it here, but that's during gameplay, and other players won't have access to all this stuff. They will only see the game, like the actual finished game. So they don't have access to the back-end stuff. So this code here now should target that max distance from the click detector, because again, with the dot, you access the folders, or you can access any property of something in here. So keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and see if this works. Okay, so if there's a click detector on the shop, and the distance has been set to 8. So now the mouse doesn't allow us to click until we're a little bit closer. Look at that. So now when we click, boop, we can buy, and that's it. Hey guys, hopefully you understood everything that happened here today. No animals were harmed in the making of this video, of course. And I appreciate you taking your time. And I know it was long, but again, it was for those who don't know much. Anyhow, thank you so much for checking this out, and I'll catch you in the next one. Don't forget about Maple Door. It's coming out soon.